Hello, this is Dave Thaxton, and my literature review was an investigation on play-based learning and music. And basically I found there were four strands that I focused on, and that was developmental play in infancy and toddlerhood, social development through play, and cognitive development through play, and game-based play. So starting with play-based learning in infancy and toddlerhood, researchers found that the first interactions between a mother and their infant were sensory motor and tactile in nature, but most interestingly, these interactions followed a structure of introduction, climax, and release that mirror language structures and musical structures. Also, throughout toddlerhood, musical play was found to be embedded with regular play, in non-musical play, and in how it moved from functional play, where they would use things as their function was perceived, through symbolic play and imaginative and pretend play, which is the beginnings of abstract thought. Moving on into social development, the social development strand of play-based learning, there were researchers that looked at playground music games and the social interactions that arose from those, and that they were based on perceived expertise of one child. Either that child had appointed themselves as the leader because they knew how it went, or other children appointed them as the leader because they felt that they knew how to play this musical game. Interestingly, in this study, all of the games fell apart, and that was the interesting thing about that was that they investigated how they fell apart and what the children did as a social interaction when that happened, when it turned out that the person that they thought was the expert didn't know as much as they claimed to or had been ascribed to know. And so basically what they found is that these interactions were very much a mirror and a model for adult real-world interactions, where you would interact in a hierarchy structure of power and what comes of that. And it's basically a laboratory, a safe space to try out all these interactions. Another thing that they looked at for social development was sibling play, and researchers found that sibling play at the younger ages, especially toddler and infancy, were geared more towards pretend play and music and dance activities. Now these free music and dancing, singing and dancing together, it was found to be very collaborative, and that had implications for social identity and emotional regulation. And then cognitive development. This strand looked at a few different ways of learning new things. There was a group of speech and language therapists in the UK that worked with some music educators, and they found that when children were given opportunities to play with musicals, nonverbal modes of musical play, it actually stimulated emerging speech skills. So it turned out to be a very powerful tool, music did. They also looked at older siblings and more experienced friends with skills, these relationships, and it was found that an expert and apprentice type of relationship emerged in these relationships that actually was of great benefit to the younger sibling or the younger friend who had less experience, because not only did they gain the expertise from the older sibling or friend, but they also had a lot of experience and practice playing with them, whereas the older sibling typically didn't have as much of this playtime, this interactive play. And also they looked at exploratory play. When learning about an instrument or learning an instrument, they found that free exploratory playtime developed deeper understandings and learning better than structured formal education. So that has some implications for how we might think about our curriculum and lesson design. Lastly, The strand of game-based play introduces aims, goals, and parameters into a play-based environment. And what this does is it introduces the idea of challenge. And challenge is a way of making problem solving happen, puzzle solving that develops learning and an understanding about a subject. Whether it would, one of the studies was on how college students use the video game Rocksmith to learn how to play bass guitar. And it was found that while this is fun and motivational, it was very, very effective in stimulating actual learning on how to play an instrument. And so these rules and parameters are exquisitely important. Lastly, play has kind of gotten a bad rap in a lot of circles as being frivolous, but we know from the research that it is actually awakening sensory pathways, and it primes developmental stages of our students and children. So it moves them along their developmental stages from sensory motor stages into functional stages through symbolic understandings and the pretend and imaginative understandings that are the basis and the foundation of formal education, as it fosters abstract thought. So that is what I've gained from my investigation through this lit review, and I've had a really good time investigating this, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well. Thank you.